Hello and welcome to this episode of The Three Coaches. I'm Taty. I'm joined as ever by Furn.
Hey guys.
And Mac.
Hi there.
We're going to be breaking down our first LCK game today. So we're going for a game from the 30th. It was Afrika Freaks versus KT. So I'll just do a little bit of setup for this game before I let you guys take over for the actual champ select. Coming into this, Afrika are currently 5th. And KT rolls to 3rd. But in the last few weeks, KT have been on a definite downswing, whereas Afrika have been on an upswing. So Spirit especially had a very rough start to the split, but he really started picking his game up in the week leading up to this game. So that's pretty much it. It's very dependent, the standing story are very dependent on this game. The way they do it in Korea is they have a gauntlet, for anyone who doesn't know. So rather than a standard playoff bracket, you play 5th plays 4th, then the winner plays 3rd, etc., etc. So every position you go up on the standings does make a massive difference. Cool, so we'll just jump into it. Are you both at the same position, 5:45?
Yep.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, cool. Either of you then, does anyone want to take it away in terms of this pick and ban?
Okay. So
I think both of the comps are actually quite hard to play. They're not easy to execute comps. I mean, KT is much more so, but Afrika actually have a pretty difficult comp to execute, I'd say. There's a lot of mixed messages in terms of the champions they have. A lot of pick, but then a Rumble and a Talon, not champions that I would typically ever think about putting in a comp together. Obviously Rumble for Marin is great. It's I think the jungle bans make a lot of sense against Score, just because Score is such a beast on Elise and Graves, and he doesn't really play that much Lee Sin. All-time history on Lee Sin, he's played very little of it, although I think recently he had an incredibly good game and showed off his Lee Sin mechanics pretty hard. But they're obviously relying on him to pick the Rengar over the Lee Sin and then get the Lee Sin into it so Spirit can play aggressively and play around this topside push, which is what they're aiming for. There aren't really that many good counter matchups into the Rumble apart from the Kennen. The Kennen's a huge one. It's really the only good counter matchup, although I've heard Kled is good as well. So it's a nice response from KT, but it's such a hard pick to play around attack speed Kennen. It's not like Kennen used to be. It's just a pure split pusher. He's really not good in team fights. So although at first glance, Kennen Karma Vladimir looks disgustingly strong. This is not the world's Kennen Karma Oriana that we had, however long ago Worlds was 6 months, where those 3 picks were super strong, and Kennen was insanely good at team fight flanking with Karma. It's kind of a different ball game. So this is much more like a 1-3-1 comp from them.
Yeah, definitely. Old AP Kennen. The big changes with Kennen is that a lot of his ult damage got backloaded to the end of the ult now. It's not like an initial burst where the old Kennen used to be Protobelt Zhonya's and have pseudo tankiness because he'd be invulnerable for a long time while on the front line and getting into the back line. Whereas, yeah, this like you said, is much different. It's very split push orientated. If you're ever going to use it to skirmish, it's you can use the first ult possibly as a TB skirmish because it's not so different at that levels. But as the game progresses, you become worse and worse in skirmishes. You're quite good at peeling back, but generally it's literally sit in a side lane, cause huge amounts of pressure and force 2 people to come and deal with you, while the rest of the team then gains a 4v3 advantage. Both of these comps are super Korean in as much as there's no standard battle lines, there's no outright front lines. It's a very aggressive from both sides in 2 different ways really. Afrika are looking for much more kind of grouped up skirmishes after laning phase. And during laning phase, it's just going to be Lee Sin and Talon roam into side lanes and using the gank setup pressure of Nautilus Jhin and the just outright lane pressure of Rumble, who like Max said probably won't have as much pressure as he normally would because of the Kennen matchup. But it's like I said, it's very very kind of non-standard battle lines. It's going to be quite interesting to see how this game plays out. There's no okay, the tank's going to tank a good portion of the enemy team's cooldowns, and then your backline's going to do all the work. It's going to be very much whoever gets the jump on the other team in terms of skirmish-wise probably wins. But KT have got the less chance at actually skirmishing, or the less want to skirmish or need to. It's going to be much more about picks for KT. And then Africa, it's going to be much more about their roaming ability in the early game, and then grouping up and team fighting once you get past that.
Yeah, I think a lot of this game is going to depend on mid. I think Pawn has been a massive weak spot for KT. And I think it's really interesting they decided to ban the Talia away from Kuro. We've seen Kuro's pretty good on Talia, obviously, because Kuro is a great mid laner, but Talia's like massively risen up in priority to the extent that a lot of teams are like legit first rotation blind picking the Talia. But it might be a weakness in Pawn's champion pool that it doesn't really seem like his type of champion. This entire split, he's been really hardcore into like control mages, apart from the occasional Zed and Talon game, I think. Because I think he's played Talon a couple of times, right?
Yeah, he has.
But yeah, so I think a lot of this game is going to depend really hard on mid pressure, because you've got like a really good pushing matchup top. You've got a really good pushing matchup bot, Ash Karma, like one of the most abusive bully lanes in the game, at least in the very early levels. Although there is like kill pressure from Jhin Nautilus, they shouldn't actually be able to withstand the push. So I think that if Pawn doesn't get like rolled over by the Lee Sin and Talon, then they should be able to like just 1-3-1 this game, no problem.
Yeah. No, for
So
sure.
do you guys, obviously this is quite different from LCS especially, partly because Rumble, with these probably the two best Rumble players in the world, and Rumble is already a high priority in Korea. Do you think it's worth giving up the Rumble for this Kennen? Letting them have the Rumble, knowing that you'll be able to pick up the Kennen?
Well, I assume, it will have been played tens of times within scrims, right, by KT, and they've probably tested that a lot this week, and whether it shows to be or not, I'm sure from their scrim knowledge anyway, it will 100% be that. It wouldn't be that it's unprepared that they're going to play against Kennen and they didn't predict against Rumble, and they didn't predict that it was going to first pick it. That will 100% be scouted out. So whether it works or whether it doesn't, I think from a KT standpoint, if you're the coach of KT, you'd be super confident that you have got something that you can play into it and use very well. But yeah, I think that's a lot about the pro play, and it's like people look at that quite often from an outside perspective and see something that's in a professional game, and I don't know, a LeBlanc or a Rengar or something goes off, and then they're like, well, why didn't you ban this? But in the previous 15 games that this same situation's occurred, that count has been really effective. So sometimes it's hard to tell, and that's just like part of being in a pro team.
Yeah, I mean, this is supposed to be a very hard counter. Like, it's supposed to be really, really nasty. And if you're gonna trust someone to punish Marin, then why not Smeb? You know, like if you're gonna give Marin Rumble, then I feel like you have to take the Kennen. If you're not gonna give him the Rumble, then fine, ban the Rumble away. But then you give him. I don't know about this Camille ban. Actually, I really don't know about this Camille ban. Like, if I'm KT, and you're playing against Marin and you see a Jace ban, then okay, fine. If they pick Camille, do we really care? Because you can get Rengar Shen off of that. You can get Rengar Shen first rotation, and you do not care about the Camille. So maybe I would have rathered it if it was a Rumble ban, but again, like Furn said, they've probably been practicing this specific setup and are planning for this to happen, right? They're probably
you've got to know he'll take it, don't you? I mean, that's one of the things that Marin's somehow able to do with Rumble that a lot of other people seem to struggle with, is have so much pressure early game. So I know he was obviously the first person.
Like hell.
Well, this is what I was going to say. So I know he was the first person to bring out the Kennen as a counter, and it still gets pushed around early, just like everyone does against Rumble. But eventually you'll be fine. But then the problem is you've got the fact that Rengar is not going to be as useful as Lee Sin.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is always going to be just need for the early lane.
I actually feel that I was thinking that about the Rengar, about how it's not that great, like 3-6 in terms of early game. So I really like this strategy from Afrika. I think the talent pick's a bit funky. I think it's a bit weird, but like I'll trust you on it, because this is like a very much like a mad scientist team. Like I'm not sold on the Vladimir pick though. I feel like the Talon's going to bully the Vladimir around early, and I feel like Talon's actually really good into Vladimir. like really good.
The double buys.
Why not take Orianna here? Orianna's would be super good, if in my opinion. I don't see a problem with the Orianna at all. Like, or even just like a Syndra. Why the hell not? They have literally no front line. Like, just blow people up with Syndra. I would rather if KT had literally just gone for 3 pushing lanes here, which they could have. They could have like 3 mega hard pushing lanes. My experience of Talon isn't that great. Like, I literally haven't had anyone pick him against us in a scrim, so I don't really know what his strong matchups are. I don't know if you know, Furn.
That's very much an LCK thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
The thing is, he often loses. Well, he doesn't have necessarily really good lanes. Right? I think he has particularly good matchups against stuff like Jace, stuff that wants to all in him, and he can counter all in really well. But generally, his laning matchups aren't great. It's his ability to, when he does get any kind of pressure, how quickly he can move like north and south and just be a bot lane within like literally 10 seconds. And there's no TP channel, there's nothing. Like, you're completely unsuspecting with regards to it occurring. And then he can chase you down, and he will one shot something like an Ashe. So I think that's where his like real strengths lie. And his ability to move, and I think that's why you see the Jhin Nautilus here, in as much as just the kill pressure it sets up for a Talon gank in that lane. You can clearly see what KT's strategy is, though. And this, to me, even though it's like quite oddball, it seems very like premeditated with regards to the type of comp they're going for, and I think it's very much orientated around okay, Kennan's going to be having split push pressure, meaning that if he does have that pressure, it's going to take more than Rumble to actually attend to Kennen or prevent Kennen just taking down towers for long periods of this game, or dive in the Rumble if he needs to once he starts like harassing him down with Wit's End and just his on hit build. And then when that occurs, is there going to be enough disengage to stop Ashe Arrow, Karma speed up, and Rengar going in? And that's where, again, I think you were quite right, Mac, in saying that something like a Syndra or an Orianna would be equally, probably if not more effective. But I think what Vlad is very good at, he may be harassed a bit in lane, so on and so forth, but I think he's very good at denying all-ins from champions.
He's good against the Lee Sin for sure.
Whether that's Syndra, whether that's Zed, whether that's Talon, it's very good at like denying you ever all in him. So really, there's only, although it's a very squishy comp, there's only really one target, and that's Ashe. That's quite strange when there's no outright tank on a comp. That there's only one real target that Africa can look to kind of go for.
Yeah, so I'm assuming what KT have done here is they've seen there's loads and loads of pick pressure on Afrika, and they're like, right, we just have to get through this laning phase, and then we can 1-3-1 these guys no problem, which I completely agree with. Like, if they get into a position where they're able to 1-3-1, even from like even gold, there's nothing Afrika can do about it. But they have a terrifying mid-game trough. Like, as soon as Afrika hit level 6 on their mid laner, and I guess their jungler as well, like, Vladimir, like, the logic, I suppose, has pretty meh laning matchups, tends to just go even and chill. But like Talon kind of does the same and then just roams. So you're going to be able to get through to level 9 on Vladimir, which is when he starts actually having pressure. But between level 6 and level 9, like, someone's probably going to die. Like, if this comp doesn't get out of the mid game even, and Afrika's mid game is actually horrifying, like, it's so scary, then they're going to really, really suffer.
Who, like, realistically, if Afrika don't gain pressure in the early game, though, and Kennan's pressuring in Rumble, whoever kills Vladimir, like, there is no sustained damage coming out of Afrika to ever kill Vlad, right?
Yeah, they just 1-3-1, and Vlad's impossible to deal with, and Kennan's impossible to deal with, and they just win the game. But I think getting to that point is really scary. Like, there's like such a clear power window for Afrika here.
Yeah.
Cool. Should we jump into the game then?
Yeah, let's do it. This should be a really interesting game. I like that they both have comps that are just super all in on one thing. Like, even like down to like the jungle pick is like.
Oh, yeah, there's a pause. I forgot about the pause. Is
like really all in on the early game, or like I want to be passive and farm up, and it's kind of the same story on both sides, right? Like, KT wants to play the slow pressure game and just build up with waves, and Afrika just wants to like go ham, which is classic Afrika style. You can take the players out of Afrika, but
For some reason, it won't normally on YouTube you get to see. Oh, there you go. You get to see the screen that you're going to skip to. For some reason, it wouldn't let me do that. So I had to just look around. One thing that I think is quite often undervalued in good Talon players. So I know, for a lot of times in LCK in the last week, it's been blind picked in the mid lane, and it's just because you can actually play it as a really, really effective team fighter as well. So what SKT do quite a lot is pair it with an Ezreal, get a very early Black Cleaver, and then you just get into the backline and shred everyone's armor with the Alt W combo. Yeah. And you get away, and then just the value of applying what would it be 4 stacks to everyone on the team is just massive.
Talon's team fighting's a very unique one. It's you jump in and you jump out and you jump in and jump out and just cause real hassle to the you muck up the standard battle lines because the tank's coming back to peel or their peel is coming back to peel, and then all of a sudden their backline's exposed to your backline while Talon's just constantly jumping in and out of fights. And if he doesn't have the power to one-shot backline, it's very hard to stop.
Yeah, I guess he's like a disruptor in many cases.
Yeah, it really is, and it's more diverse than something like a Z because you can go in and out and in and out rather than just going in. And if you kill someone, that's great. You go back out, and if you don't, you stand in the middle of the team and die.
Yeah. So this is what I was afraid of happening in bot lanes. They're just going to get shoved. Spirit's gone for a mega early.
He's got double pushing solo lanes.
Yeah. I mean, this is exactly how they want to be playing it. This is really good. Oh, and he gets the smite onto it. That's unfortunate. Oof. That was a way closer duel than I would have thought from between Elise and Rengar at level 3 actually. But he has the pushing solo lanes.
And he saved his flash as well. Would have been slightly less close.
Spirit's been having a real up and up season.
Can we skip back a sec just to see the jungle route lead into that because
he went
I want to see how they
Raptors red blue, and I'm pretty sure score went Raptors, then all the way back round to red, or did he? No, he recalled first. Oh wow, he went Raptors, Wolves blue, recall into red. That's quite a unique path.
So this is actually really risky from Lee, right? Because he's gone back and he's got a longsword.
Yeah,
right.
This is 7.5, so it's post Rengar early armor.
Yeah, so this is actually score I guess premeditating the red buff invade, right? And being okay, if he's going to invade me at my red buff, I want a longsword for it.
It'd be impossible, yeah. And it's actually, I guess Spirit doesn't consider this, and
classic.
Gets very low.
Yeah, it's actually much worse than he thinks, I think.
He uses the red buff to.
He could have given this up though as well. Score could have just given up the red buff and let Spirit take it and just realize it's Lee into
from the pings that Score was doing. So he's spam pinging that he's on the way to red as he's going over. It looks like he's saying, I'm going here. He's gonna be.
He's probably going to invade me, but his solo laners can't move.
So is it just not? Is he just doesn't want to give that up, even though Rumble's already got Ken on the tower, Talon's already got Vlad on the tower.
As soon as you see your solo lanes pushed in, you just have to go there, ward for it, and then if he turns up, you just leave and just give up your red and hope that he doesn't turn up. But
I mean, maybe he thinks he's got some insane sick strategy and he's banking on having a longsword up on the Lee Sin. Maybe he's called all this and been I can kill him. Which, if it did work, would be super genius. But it is a risk. It's a big risk.
I don't think as well he can play that fight realistically any better. So he uses the red buff to tank Lee Sin's Q, stuff like that, and he still dies.
Yeah, he played it super well. But it's a big risk, right, for this comp that desperately needs to not get snowballed on. Give over the red buff.
Yeah, why take a 50-50?
And this just comes back to what I mentioned before with Mars Rumble. If he'll push regardless of whether he's safe to push, but if you can make it so he is safe to push.
Kuro actually lost a lot of CS off of that recall, I think. Yeah, he's a full wave behind right now. I guess he got harassed out of lane really early.
Yeah.
That's quite surprising from a Vladimir. You wouldn't normally expect that.
I think he was pushing extra for the safety as well.
Yeah.
So just burning the corrupting potion, constantly jumping in on the Vlad.
Why did he come in through Tribush there, actually? Oh, I guess they'd seen that there was a ward in the lane, maybe? Perhaps they probably called the ward in the lane.
So I think with regards to Spirit right now, Spirit should really be just looking to play around the bottom half of the map and allow Talon as much pressure as possible, or try and help Talon gain pressure, so that
Here they go.
this can happen, right? This is exactly what I was just about to say. Is that these two should then able to invade Rengar constantly, control his bot side jungle, in turn giving them Drake control, and also giving them the highest chance of first blood tower in bot lane.
Interestingly enough, the fact that Kuro actually sacked off a load of CS to get an earlier recall to get back to base first, not to get back to base, well, to get back to base and to get back to lane first, meant that he was able to push first and roam first so they could get bottom side control there. So maybe it was actually an intentional move just to get like increased mid tempo. I don't think it was, but like it's an interesting side effect at the very least. And like, how is he equalized on CS? Has Paul just been missing CS now?
There was a quite big wave when he was down.
Right. So maybe he actually did just get a better recall off.
Yeah. What do you guys both think about the cull start for Kennen?
Very risky.
But what are the other options? Doran's Blade?
Yeah, the other option's Doran's Blade, but I think it's pretty standard for Kennens to start cull, to be honest. Like, yeah. I think it's a big like kick me sign in terms of like please don't come and gank my lane. I'm starting cull, and Marin's going to take advantage of it pretty hard.
What it says is he knows he's not going to win the lane at this point. He's not going to harass Rumble enough to be able to create any real pressure, but he's equally not ever going to die. And as a result, Cole's the most efficient item in the game, right? Because you get all your gold for that starting item back, which no other starting item you get that. So it's like a free starting item. If you can freely stack it, it's a completely free starting item, which obviously others are. So.
Yeah, and this is actually really annoying for Marin because he's rushing a Wit's End, right? And like Marin's going straight for Zhonya's, but Kennen deals so much mixed damage, which is one of the reasons why he's such a good matchup into Rumble. Like Rumble can't itemize properly against it, but no one really can.
Yeah, once you get that Wit's End, it's really irritating as well because it's like true magic damage on hit because you're removing his magic damage and his magic resist, and when he tries to trade back, like you've got so much more magic resist than he has if you've already got a couple of stacks in it.
Yeah, it's really nice.
You're just trading magic damage, and it's not very nice at all.
So when teams go for these picks where Rumble's always going to be more useful than Kennen in a team fight, even if he was behind.
Yeah.
Is it he has to get a certain CS lead to make this pick worth it, or is it like because obviously the later the game goes, the better it is for Kennen. But if when we get to level 11, Marin's still equal or up in CS like he is currently, is that?
A lot of this game would be dependent on the other 4 champions on each team, and which team can get the tempo the best and be able to maintain that. Obviously, if there's like solo kills in this lane or anything, that's going to swing the effectiveness of the 4-man. But realistically, if Africa get a significant lead in this early game, which they should with the champions that kind of with regards to what they've got in their toolkit, so to speak, then Africa are going to be able to position around neutrals. They're going to be able to position as 4 or 5 man around tower and really use their like skirmish pressure to win the game. Whereas if KT get a foothold in this game, then what you'll see is a situation where Smeb starts to push in long lanes. Any long lanes that open up, he'll be in those long lanes and start to pressure, and it'll force Rumble to come and deal with him. And if he's forcing that, then obviously immediately the team fight's weaker because Rumble's not with the team. And in the end, Rumble's not going to be able to take anything anyway because he's not going to be able to deal with Smeb by himself, and he's going to call Lee Sin there, and you're going to be a situation where you're constantly in this 4-1 situation or 1-3-1 if they decide to do that with the Vlad. And your resources that should be working best as a 5-man are split out all over the place, and you're much weaker when you're spread thinly in this composition. So realistically, it's kind of who gets to the stronger early is going to settle into their composition's strengths, either split push or 5-man fights and skirmishes.
So even though it is a counter pick, it's not about like crushing him in lane or anything. It's just about when you get through, it will keep them split.
I mean, you outscale him super hard. As soon as Kennen gets like 2 to 3 items, he just becomes so obnoxious and impossible to deal with, and that's all they're waiting for. So, like Furn said, it's about the other 4 champions they have. If those 4 champions can put out enough pressure to stop Afrika coming and 2-manning this Kennen constantly without getting punished, then the Kennen is just going to go off, and he's going to be able to play super up in Marin's face and just chunk his tower, and there's nothing you can do about it because he'll out-sustain him with the Blade of the Ruin King once he gets it.
So jump back to show the build-up for that play that we was just about to happen. What's the objective here for Afrika? Are they just still continuing to try and punish the Kennen for sort of being AD, as it were?
Yeah, set him behind, stop him from completing his cull. Get the Rumble free to move. This is, like we said, this is Afrika's massive power spike. As soon as they hit level 6, they have to start making plays. So they have to free up the Rumble so that he can move across the map and get him into stuff like dragon fights where Rumble and Jhin really shine, right? And get him to just start skirmishing people before we're in the full like team fight split pushing stage of the game where he can just constantly be diving towers and getting people in like small chokes.
Holy shit,
that was a nice kick. That was a sweet kick.
That's all those solo queue games coming in.
Exactly.
There was a time where he played, like, this is just a random anecdote, but I think there was a time where he reportedly was playing something like 30 games for every other day, average of 15 games a day for a while because they sub someone else in. Yeah, so another thing that I'll talk about, really quickly, is that if back in that play, Morin again just uses his ult for the pressure and clearing the wave rather than going for the tower, which is the second or maybe even third time he's done this already this game.
Yep.
Just to try and push. He preferred to push them around and go for.
Yeah, just push the cannon off. The cannon does not have good wave clear.
As much as Smebs and Katie have probably been practicing this cannon into Rumble matchup, I'm sure Marin's played it 1,000 times himself, right? And he will know the strengths and weaknesses of the champion. He's like the founder of on-hit cannon in this season. So I'm sure he will have played this matchup thousands of times, and he will know exactly that the weakness of cannon is that he can't shove harder than the Rumble in the early game. And if you've got the stronger jungle matchup at this point in the game, which Lee into Rengar is, and you pressure correctly around top lane, if you keep using your ult to push this in, it's nothing to do with killing cannon, it's nothing to do with even setting cannon behind, but he's not going to be able to stop you taking this tower. And you saw this quite clearly. As soon as Lee showed his face, cannon could literally do nothing. And it happened to be that Rengar was able to be there and kind of counter that play, but it still wasn't enough. There's a massive
the Lee Sin kick is actually such a good answer to the cannon ulti as well.
Yeah.
They did pick. Yeah, they picked the cannon into the Lee Sin, didn't they? Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
But again, that might be really clever drafting from a Freak of Freaks. Like, okay, you're going to pick cannon because like you can pick cannon into our Rumble, but you also have to pick cannon into our Lee Sin.
Yeah.
The other thing that it allowed them to do as well, which we didn't touch on, is because it forces the cannon to come out in your first 3 picks, it allowed them to ban away the Cassiopeia, which is used a bit as a talent counter.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Quite useful too.
Yeah. So in terms of what Freak of Freaks want to do now, we commented on the fact that they have loads and loads and loads of kill pressure across the bottom side of the map, and the Talon can roam super easily. He's now got Hex Drinker plus a Dirk, so he's going to be clearing waves like really nicely. He's got blue buff, so he can spam all day, and he's absolutely fine. He's got the sustain from the corrupting potion to at least kind of semi-match the Vladimir, so he doesn't get wrecked and doesn't get outpushed. And they just want to get the Rumble moving to the side lanes now. If Rumble and Talon can move down to even just to a Drake fight, they can get such an enormous advantage. And the look at Smeb, like it's just sitting mid. He has nowhere to be. He can't walk out in this lane because if he comes, then like they don't have vision on Lee Sin because of the pink wards that Afrika have in the river. So he could be anywhere right now. And Kennen just can't do anything. Rumble's going to push this wave into the tower, and then he gets a completely free roam off of this. Like it's kind of unfortunate the wave meets here.
So what is it then that KT want to do as they're sort of just from the pressure and topside they're losing so much on the map?
The thing is, like this, the KT comp is very much one-dimensional because in as much as you've got a split pusher, right, which is going to okay, he's not going to be stronger than the Rumble early, but he will scale infinitely and be significantly stronger, even if this Rumble's 10-0 and Kennen 0-10. Once they hit the item breakpoints, this Kennen is going to be able to push this Rumble around and harass really hard. But you have to have something to get it to that point, and realistically, there's not enough. In as much as Katie have fallen so far behind in the early game already, due to the pressure of Lee and Talon being able to move, and Lee's pressure over Rengar more so than anything, that you are never getting Kennen to, you're never allowing, facilitating his ability to get ahead. And that's the key to any split push comp ever, is you have to play top centric and allow the split pusher to become a split pusher, right? Whereas team fighters just become team fighters through being themselves naturally, whereas split pushers need much more resources to get there.
Yeah, and like I said a second ago, the Kennen is really you saw that he was really struggling to actually have anywhere to be on the map. Right now they've had vision on Lee Sin, they know where he is, so he feels okay to be up here. But if the Kennen can't posture up and play aggressively, he can't get a CS lead because he needs time to be able to chunk down waves. He needs to be able to sit in the lane auto-attacking repeatedly, and he just doesn't have access to that at the moment because the rest of the champions don't have the type of pressure that they need to be able to stop Lee Sin coming top. And because of that, Lee Sin has total vision in all. Look at the 4 pink walls in the river and in the top tribush. They have no idea where Lee Sin is. They can't get any vision into the Afrika jungle, so Kennen just can't play aggro. So he's just never going to win this matchup unless they manage to scale for a ridiculously long time, because Afrika makes mistakes. But Afrika are in a really good position to just snowball now. So it's kind of their game to lose.
Yeah, I still feel that if KT are able to stall out this game, then Afrika are still on very much of a timer.
Yeah, definitely.
Where the Vlad's not going to die to anyone. Ashe is going to be able to just be utility, and Rengar is going to be able to go in on 3 squishy targets, and cause real detriment to the team. So I think, although Afrika have got a lead, it is very much theirs to have to force and win the game now than it is for KT to force anything now. As long as they don't lose too much, come 25 minutes, they'll start to be okay, because Kennen can posture around bot side of the map, and they can't keep investing Talon and Lee Sin to go and deal with Kennen anymore, because Baron is relevant on the map now at that point. So if this game goes for another 10 minutes and there's not a significant gold lead for Afrika, then I think it's going to become kind of more tough as the game progresses.
Yeah, agreed.
So in terms of the posturing up for this Rift Herald, then, do you want to go into this fight? So Afrika, as you guys were just saying, they know they're still on a clock, so they're trying to take the objectives that they can take. So they've got pressure in all 3 lanes when they started it, but because something that we mentioned last time, it just takes so long to do.
Yeah,
KT still managed to get the collapse before it happens.
I think that personally, Rift Herald with mid lane outer tower stood up is really bad. I think you should only take Rift Herald when you have at least top lane and mid lane outer down, because the mid lane is just it takes so long to take this objective that the mid lane is too short for you to push a wave all the way in in time for them to not be able to bounce it back into you. So if this play goes wrong, the opportunity cost is huge.
Really, what is the value of Rift Herald for this Afrika comp?
You're not trying to split push.
Rumble gets it, and okay, it takes 5% less damage, so it takes an extra auto from Kennen to kill him, who's got DPS anyway. It's just he runs out of damage on cooldown. I guess you could look at it in as much as you don't want Kennen to get it, so you take it off the map. But equally, is Kennen going to be able to secure this in the next 4.5 minutes? Probably not, because KT is significantly weaker than Afrika right now, and they will be for the next 10 minutes, like I said, at least. So I think the premise or the idea around actually going for this Rift Herald at any point significantly is just poor in principle.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll just play it out.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, just see.
Yeah, it goes okay. It goes about as well as they could have hoped.
KT keep them off the actual buff pretty well, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, if they can get the buff onto... Oh, dear. If they can get the buff onto Lee Sin, I was about to say. then it's actually pretty decent for him because that's just the style that Spirit likes to play.
What
They
is the
can facilitate
interaction
him
with Rift
invading.
Herald when no one gets the buff?
That's it. It's gone. It lasts on the ground for, you saw it there.
Yeah.
Not long.
Not long.
I didn't know whether it just defaulted to the person who's slain Rift Herald.
No, it just goes.
No, it just
that's
pisses
it.
off.
Oh, okay.
Which makes it an even worse objective for you to take.
Yeah. So I mean, no one died for it, but KT trade a flash for that amount of time. That's
the important thing. KT gets time. They get like 2 minutes off of that,
we said,
which is huge. They get Lee Sin flash. They get the Lee Sin flash, which is massively important, especially for like the dives that Afrika want to pull off.
So the other thing with that is though, Furn, like, what objective should Afrika have been doing there if they're just pushing in every lane, the dragon's down, and they have a time? Is it still? Was it not just opportunistic?
For me, it's play. While Kennen has no pressure, like the instance Kennen's in right now, he has no pressure on any tower, right? So why are you not grouping up as 5 and pressuring one of these tier 1s? Because if you do that, you know Kennen doesn't want to join his team and will never join his team unless he will be really, really stubborn to stay in the side lane and try and outgain the pressure that you can gain as a 5-man.
He used his E for wave clear.
And Rengar's not tanky yet. No one's tanky yet. You can Vlad's the hardest one to kill, and I'm not sure this comp will ever kill Vlad in the history of this comp. Like, if this game goes 10 minutes or an hour and a half, I don't think anyone kills Vladimir. But you have to be forcing something to your comp's strengths, and that's grouping as a unit and using the fact that Kennen doesn't want to group with his team and have an outnumbered situation while Kennen has no pressure. And there's lots of times right now where Kennen's not getting pressure. And you can rotate into Kennen if he does, because Baron isn't prevalent yet, so you don't have to be in a certain area of the map.
I mean, this bot lane is so easy to kill for Jhin Nautilus with a Talon and a Lee Sin coming in, like,
and especially if Rumble's TP in too, right? When Kennen has no pressure.
Like, they have so many options right now. They can take mid lane as well because they have bot lane pressure. Because Lee Sin's so much stronger than Rengar, they can have control over the bottom side river if Rumble's always roaming down to push Vladimir off the mid wave, and they can just walk up and open up Jhin ulti and take mid tower, no problem.
Why would you pick Nautilus support if you're not going to be proactive with it? Like, if you're not going to use its kill pressure that it has over other lanes, like, why would you take that champion?
Yeah, I mean, like, realistically, he's actually past his point of most use now, right? Like, he is the lane bully, and that's what he's good at, is killing people in lane. Like, the Karma is essentially won out in this matchup right now. You're super happy if you reach the stage where you're starting to move around the map and group rather than play like a 2v2 lane if you're playing Karma into Rumble, because not Karma into Nautilus. Because Nautilus is supposed to kill the Karma in lane. That's why you picked Jhin. They haven't actually made any roams to the spot lane like at all. Spirit's like not even been there.
And I think
so, like, once they got the Rumble ahead, absolutely fine, great.
Yeah.
But then you need to move around the map from the lane that's strong.
So I mean, there is got to be a bit of credit for KT there, because they seem to know that that's happening as well, and they've got 4 wards now after Nautilus just swept 2.
I think that's just because the Lee Sin showed top. Like, Score right now knows that he just can't be in the same place as Lee Sin. He just has to mirror him on the other side of the map and just try and get what he can. He's just kind of getting scraps right now. He's building super defensively as well.
I just mean they've kept their bot lane very safe just by littering their bot side.
Yeah, no, like, by all means, it's a good play to do, but like, it shouldn't happen. It's a play that can only happen reactively because of the pink ward situation with Afrika. They're having all the pink wards in the river, so they shouldn't ever know where Lee Sin is until he shows. And the reality is that he just kind of showed in the wrong place on the map there, if you ask me. Getting double Ocean Drake is super good though. Ocean Drake's great. It's one thing that I love Ocean Drake for is baiting out Baron. I think it's so good. It lets you stay on the map for so long. Especially with like a pick skirmish style comp where you want to force them into you and fight repeatedly in small chokes. It means that you can take trades and take poke and be fine and just walk away and regen and make the same play around Vision, which is really good for them. It would have been better if it were Infernal, because this comp is disgusting with Infernal. But
both of these comps are disgusting with Infernal, actually. Yeah,
true. But Ocean's nice. Ocean's a nice second. I'd be really happy with Ocean Drakes personally, although I think a lot of players wouldn't be. They get Cloud next. This is really rough RNG. But you really want an Infernal Drake or a Mountain.
Especially for the early game team. Like, Afrika need to get as much out of the map as possible while they're still strong. And by getting things like Cloud, it doesn't benefit or extend the amount of time that they've got to win this game. Whereas KT really don't need to do anything. They just have to prevent Afrika doing things and then be strong. And that's the issue that there is.
Afrika's spread on the map is really weird right now. Like, you go back to that like red buff play. Like they have like Rumble and someone else trying to take a red buff and 2 people trying to kill the mid laner. Like they're doing a lot of things at the same time. They're very spread. Whereas like right now they want to just be grouping up and brute forcing. Like right now they win the team fights.
This is something that we saw in the Dignitas IMT game quite a lot. The team that had the early advantage was able to just do loads of stuff because the other team wasn't like handshaking well and wasn't playing to absorb the pressure. But KT seemed to be doing that fairly well. So if you're in this situation, obviously these players won't be feeling this probably that much. But there's obviously that pressure of we've got to get something done because we're already getting to a point where Vladimir's getting really strong, Kennan's getting strong in the 1v1. So what is it in practice, like a literal thing that Afrika can do in this situation to try and speed up the game rather than just a sort of generic like more pressure and stuff like that?
Well,
I just think Spirit needs to group with his bot lane.
I think what you need to do, I think, is that, well, you saw just a second ago Kennen went bot, right? And tier 1 bot lane's not even down yet. So and Ashe was under tier 2 top lane, clearing a wave by herself. You need to know that Kennen, okay, he's bot side, whatever. Rumble has TP. Rumble can sit there and clear the wave for now. It's not like he's going to get dove under tier 1 solo by a Kennen. So pressure into the Ashe lane, and then TP Rumble in, and really, really brute force, because there's a tier 2 there. And okay, you probably give up your tier 1, but you're killing Ashe and taking a tier 2 for it, and gaining topside vision control. And if you gain topside vision control, and okay, in the end you might end up giving your tier 2 over to Kennen if you're playing around that enough. But you're doing it for the Baron pressure that will, once you get that Baron, if he's not hitting it, if Kennen's not hitting it when you get Baron, you can just rotate into Kennen, and getting Baron against split push comps is much more effective than getting it in 5v5 comps when you're against 5v5 comp, because you can now, the fact that the Baron's now off the map for 7 minutes allows you to just be able to rotate into the Kennen, preventing him getting any more split push pressure for that meantime until Baron's back up again. And it gives you 7 minutes where you can effectively beat as a 5-man, and you can just push into the Kennen lane, and then Kennen has to regain pressure in the side lane, while your 5-man have a Baron buff and they can't do it. Like, what does this KT comp do against a team, a 5-man unit that's pushing into them with Baron? They've got a Runaan's Hurricane Ashe that they will have, but realistically there's not a lot, and they would lose much more than Kennen could gain. So I think getting Baron for Afrika by forcing things around the top side of the map is super important for them right now.
Yeah, I think they just needed to actually have these outer towers down earlier, and I think that's probably a fault on Spirit's part. So far, he's literally only ganked for solo laners, when realistically, like, okay, the early gank on the Kennen was great, the top tower, fantastic, but he's revisited that lane like 3 times, and also mid lane like twice, when Talon is not the lane that you gank. Talon, you just push and roam. That's the point of Talon. Yep. You can gank with the Talon, you can move with the Talon to get vision control, but like the Talon should be ganking the other lanes, and the Rumble should have pressure on the Kennen. So there's no reason that KT should actually be able to respond to plays if Afrika just uses the bottom lane that they've drafted for what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it's weird that they drafted that bot lane but never opened up with ultimates at any point. That doesn't make much sense.
And like I said, Ashe and Karma have essentially won the matchup right now. Ashe has Bork and Runan. She can sit and wave clear for days, and Nautilus is scaling off, and Karma's only getting better because she has a Vladimir on her team. So, like, KT are actually pretty happy at this point in the game. Like, they've got, like, decent RNG on the Drakes. They haven't given over Infernals. They've only given away outer towers, and now you're at a point where they can start 1-3-1-ing. Kennen's becoming increasingly obnoxious, and Vladimir is pretty much unkillable now. And also can actually put out a significant amount of wave pressure over the Talon.
This is where, like, Western teams wouldn't realise this, right? People would look at this and say, oh, KT are nearly 5k down, KT are losing. But realistically, Afrika are losing every second that ticks by without them getting any more gold. And this gold lead isn't enough to turn around the scaling kind of element to this game.
And one thing that I just quickly clarified for people watching, when you say Nautilus falls off, that's because he's support, right? Because Nautilus top is going to be super useful in late game team fights, but Nautilus support will just not have enough gold to be tanky.
Well,
so it's not like just the champion, but it's the champion in the role that he's in.
You pick him as support because of his high base damages, right? And his ability to just like from a very early juncture in the game, just pressure people really hard and kind of play like a more abusive melee version of Thresh in the lane. You just try and kill people and like constantly push up and like stop them challenging the wave and try and smack them.
You add a lot of kill pressure to whatever lane you play it with. Of course, exactly. You get harassed a lot in the 2v2s, but anytime a jungler's present or a ganking threat like Talon's present, you can set that up for that really well.
But as the game goes on, you can't just walk up to people and smack them as a support anymore, and your base starts to fall off, and Karma becomes more effective because she buffs her entire team, which Nautilus doesn't do. He's much more about just killing one person and like bullying them. Bullying the other support doesn't matter when you're 35 minutes into the game and you're having a team fight.
Okay, so right now, we're literally about to see what we spoke about in Champ Select, right? Like we said, KT's built the 4-1 comp, meaning their 4-man significantly stronger than the 4-man of Afrika, who have drawn the Rumble away from the being a 5-man. But if this is a 5-man, and if Rumble's actually here, then if you add the Kennen and the Rumble to the mix, Afrika are stronger. But if you remove both of those from the mix because Kennen has pressure, then KT is stronger. So that's probably what we're just about to see a skirmish now, and I'm sure that will go one way or the other. Kuro, both mid laners are positioned in very flank orientated positions. Kuro probably looking at Deft as his key target, and Pawn looking at the whole of Afrika's team as his target, and we'll kind of see how that plays out, I guess.
I think KT wins this team fight.
Yeah, I would imagine so anyway.
Oh no, the arrow went onto the Nautilus.
And Jhin flashed the Vlad combo.
And that's exactly what you were talking about with Talon at the beginning of the game time. So he just goes into the backline. Everyone has to peel back to save the backline, and then he just runs away.
The Vladimir and the Talon literally fill the same role there. They both do the exact same thing, dive the backline, and
Vlad uses pull to get out, and Talon uses his parkour to get out.
Yeah. But Afrika got the teleport out of Smeb, which is really important. And because Marin was able to rotate.
Got the mid tower as well.
Yeah, they get the mid tower, they get the TP. Really big advantage for them. If they let assign Rumble to the bot lane now, after if they can slow push this wave and then assign the bot lane, they're in a really strong position. And that wave's about to slow push. Yeah, it is.
It's an Infernal Drake up next as well. It's not for a little while yet, but that'll be interesting because that'll probably be around about the break point in this game of where you're outscaled or you can stay in the game for a bit longer because you got the Infernal. So your 4v4 is actually stronger than it should be. It's unnaturally strong because of the Infernal.
Yeah.
Oh, mine's just okay. It's working again.
Yeah, we're good. Right.
Everyone still syncs.
I feel like that reset was really late from Mark, actually.
That what? Sorry.
That reset, that recall. He stayed for an extra wave more than I thought he would. He's maximizing his farm, right? But he's not maximizing the amount of time that he's going to be in the bot lane while Kellen doesn't have TP.
Getting that TP out of Kellen, the reason why that was so important is because if the TP was present for Kennen, you'd now see Kennen in bot side of the map, and you'd see him hitting this tier 1 bot lane for free. Okay, we'll talk about after this.
Do you want to just finish your point?
Okay.
With the Kennen first.
The point of getting that Kennen TP earlier on is that he would be able to be freely bot side and knowing that he could TP into any kind of Baron skirmish that there was, while also gaining huge amount of split push pressure furthest point away from Baron, which would mean if they wanted to ever stop Kennen, you'd need to invest more than the Rumble, or if you want to remove that pressure, you have to invest more than just the Rumble, which means you're now in a 4v3 situation where arguably KT have got the stronger 4v4, so 4v3 is obviously going to massively favour them around the Baron area of the map, which if KT get Baron, the game's probably done. If Smeb can hit towers with the Baron buff against Rumble, which Baron minions, anyone who doesn't know, greatly reduce the damage they take from magic damage, so Rumble's clear of that, it is much kind of reduced on his normal wave clear, and then the 4-man's got huge engage and dive potential with Vlad, Rengar, Ashe, that realistically this game's probably done if you're KT. But equally, Africa can extend the amount of time that they've got on their clock if they continue that.
Okay, so what we just saw then from KT, which we've actually seen quite a few times, haven't talked about yet because so far they've all missed, is Deft is very quick at going for sort of opportunistic arrows. So they're not all grouped up, but every time anyone from Africa overextends, there's an arrow being shot. So we saw Marin's Flash being forced by it earlier, stuff like that. Is that just how you play Ashe, or is there something to do with that? So in my mind, that's useful because it's sort of keeping Africa honest in a way. Like they can't overextend to force stuff, and they know they're on this clock. So every time Ashe throws out of the ult and you're almost caught by it, then it slows you down again, and it just sort of buys more time. Is there anything to that, you think, or is it literally just he's looking for picks, basically?
Like obviously throwing out more arrows is going to stall more plays from Afrika, but in this case I think it is just that Jhin was up way too far and Vladimir had the first rotation. Like look how far ahead Vladimir is of the Talon. That's because Vladimir was pushing in bot lane way before Rumble was even moving to the bot lane, and Talon was coming out of base while Kennen was pushing up the top lane as well. So both of their solo lanes got to move first, which is the way this matchup should work realistically.
So that instantly buys them a lot more time, even if they don't do the Baron, because they have more time where the TP down is not as big a deal.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%.
So what so we'll talk, even though I feel like every time I've asked, it's just been from Afrika's point of view, because what KT just want to do is stall. So what do Afrika, I mean, it's getting to 30 minutes already, and yeah, they've got a decent gold lead, but they've only got the outer ring of towers. They've not even touched the inner ring. Is there anything else they do? They just need to push in and then try and group?
They have to force a play.
Yeah, and they've had to for the last probably nearly 15 minutes now, that they've needed to be more forceful than they have been. And it's since Baron's been on the map, it's been much more scary. Here's the play that we're talking about, right? They feel like they have to force something. Getting Baron off the map is the most important thing. Getting this Baron off the map for both teams really is the most important thing. But if KT get this, it's game over. Okay.
Oh, listen, got it. Like I think this was actually like I think the Baron team fight was handled really weirdly from Afrika, but I think it's a really intelligent time to force because Vladimir had used his ulti mid. Ashe had used her ulti mid, Rengar had used his ulti as well. So it's a really intelligent time to force, but the execution of this is like they have a lot of people doing a lot of different things in this fight. They're really split.
There's one thing as well though, if you see this just from Afrika's side because of that control ward, no one from KT actually backs, even though it looks like several of them are going to.
Yeah. Right, they think they've reset. They also don't have they haven't swept the pit.
They haven't swept the pit. I feel like, again, this just feels like they know they're running out of time.
Yeah. I think this is actually, like, although the fight is bad for them, in as much as it goes negatively in terms of kill trades, I think it's actually perfectly fine for Afrika to do this. The reason I say that is because now you can force things inside lanes, or you can rotate into the Kennen now. You don't have to be scared of Kennen's pushing bot. We need to force something as a 4v4 on the opposite side of the map, and we have to stay near Baron because otherwise they go Baron if we go and deal with Kennen. Whereas now you can just deal with Kennen. Like now you can send your whole team into wherever Kennen is and pressure that lane, and then his team's obviously forced to come and defend with him. And like we said, if they're forced to defend with him, 5v5 comp versus a 4-1 comp, Afrika have the advantage in a situation where they wouldn't otherwise have advantages.
Yeah, I think a huge part of it is like, oh god, the importance of of this Baron as well is actually just keeping it off of KT, because KT right now are in a position where, had they just managed to stall out the game until like the cooldowns on teleport had equalized, they would be absolutely fine to take the Baron, because there just wouldn't be anything that Afrika would be able to do against this, like a well executed 1-3-1.
And like we said, if KT ever got Baron, it's probably game over. Well, with the comp they've got, with the pressure they've got in multiple lanes, having Baron on this comp is disgustingly strong.
Okay, so now on the other side of that, because we're just saying they need to force stuff. So yes, it's good the Baron is off the map, but is this going to be detrimental to Afrika? Because it's much harder to, like, there's not an easy objective to force, right? You've got this Infernal coming up, but I assume Katie can just let it go and keep stalling.
Yeah. This Infernal is going to be really weird. This Infernal is going to be really weird. I think Katie will try and stall until Smeb has pressure on the tier 2. That should be the premise of what they do here. Okay.
Furn is so overextended.
That was really bad by
Like, they have literally no mid pressure and they have no top pressure. Like, Kennen is not far enough up onto the map for you to be there.
So what you have to do in a 4-1 comp is you have to, whatever kind of map movements you make as your 4-man are very reliant on your 1-man. So Kennen had to be in a position where he's hitting that tower and Rumble shows for anyone to push that wave out bot lane. And as a result, because it didn't, Afrika can pressure this now freely because obviously Vlad dies and you're in a 4v3 situation.
And that's also instantly an example of what you were talking about with the Baron. They're allowed to send 3 people bot.
Whereas they couldn't be bot at this point, right? As in, there would be no way that Afrika could invest anyone more than just Marin on his own with teleport to be bot in this scenario outside of the Baron being off the map. And that's why it was really good by Afrika. Even though the fight went sour, whatever, you give up some kill gold in a game where you're already 5k up. So the kill gold means nothing. Deathfire touch, unfortunate.
And Leandre's as well.
Yeah.
But again, so even though Rumble had been stronger a lot of the time, and we talked about it briefly, even on the tower there, Smeb's almost kills him.
Just really struggling, yeah.
He gets way too cocky.
I mean, he gets really cocky there, but what can KT even force off? Maybe they can take an outer tower, an inner tower, but they actually lost Smeb's TP for it, so it's not even a good trade. Because they're again just in this situation where Marin can actually group with his team without being punished super hard, which is the opposite of what you want if you're KT. If you're KT, you need to keep the Rumble locked down, and that's why that play went south in the bottom lane, because the Kennen wasn't in a position to lock the Rumble down. So Afrika felt that they were confident to actually just rotate the Rumble across the map and hard engage.
So KT's objective from now on then is to try and get Kennen into the 1v1 with Rumble, but when the TP's down, that's just not possible. Yeah,
and Afrika's objective is actually just to get Kennen's TP so that they can group. For until they have Kennen's TP, they really don't have any good plays to make on the map. But as soon as they do, then it's like a completely different ball game, because then they can start grouping really easily. Marin's TPing quite far away here.
I don't really agree with this by Afrika, to be honest. Them moving in to stop the cannon. Sorry, not Afrika. I don't agree with this by KT. Why would they group into the cannon lane, to join the cannon to take down a tier 1 when all they effectively need to do is pressure in top side and let Kennen pressure by himself, because Kennen will gain more pressure over the Rumble in a 1v1 than KT will gain in a 5v5 scenario.
So arguably they did get the TP out of the Rumble.
Yeah, so it did work out for them, but
okay.
But you still want to be making the correct play is better.
Yeah, perhaps that was actually more intelligent than I thought. Perhaps it was purely because they knew Rumble was in base, so that they felt that Rumble would need to defend TP in if they wanted to defend that.
I mean, either way they went out on that play,
might have been
right?
to do that.
I mean, either way they went out on that play, right? Because either they get to the tower 5v4 or Rumble TPs.
Yeah.
So I'll just go back for that rest of that setup for that next play as well. And this is the first aggressive use of the... That's the first he could TP, isn't it? This is the first aggressive use of the Nautilus that I think I've seen this game.
Yeah, which is 35 minutes into the game, so...
Yeah. Well, it works.
For sure.
I don't think it's worth, though. And that's just them overextending? They're too confident because there's so many ults have been used by Afrika to defend that tower.
Yeah. Let's see.
It's going to cost them so much. Isn't it?
Yeah, I guess they didn't expect them to make a play here because they'd already shoved the mid wave in. So they're expecting people to go and show on the wave that Lee Sin's just clearing out now. So they think they can get some like vision control down in the river.
Yeah, but Nautilus sees an opportunity.
Oh, Marta, you're window shopping.
He's okay. The mantra W song.
So now that Kennan's TP has been down for a while, Afrika's got the sidewave control in their favour. So it becomes really difficult for KT to actually like execute the 1-3-1 that they're doing when Afrika's with sidewave pressure.
So they did in the end manage to get a force, but it was sort of to do with KT's mistakes.
Yeah, this is they've lost so much off of this play.
Yeah,
that's enormous. And what started off as like a pretty good bot lane rotation and got the TP out, and then they just like sat around in the river for not much reason. I mean, I don't think they were looking for a pick. I don't think they want to fight there. That's not what their team comp does. And there's also nothing to fight over there. Like, you just reset there and you go back to standard lane assignments. They can't take anything. You saw they had a massive wave pushing into them. Kennen could have picked up like 30 CS there.
Yeah, I think as you said, I think they just really didn't expect it. They just expected Afrika to...
Yeah. Yeah, but the vision control is meaningless in the bot side river at this point in the game. Completely meaningless.
So KT still have this sort of timing window, right? But I mean, the thing about it is even though we keep referencing it, it's not... Are they going to be stronger in a 5v5, or is it just after a certain amount of time they can just win 4-1?
Afrika will be stronger in a 5v5 for the whole game, I think. I don't think there's a point really where KT will ever be stronger in a 5v5. But when the Baron is on the table, it's very tough for Afrika's comp to deal with Kennen effectively.
They're going to have to force really soon, I think. They have bot wave pushing, they have mid wave pushing, but they don't have Rumble TP.
Again, I think it's much easier. They've opened up the window, they've extended it significantly with a few of KT's mistakes. They getting this inhib is a big one. It allows them to... because what would happen with Kennen sitting in the side lane and there being stronger 4v4 from KT is now more like a stronger 3.5 from KT, but which probably makes them weaker in the 4v3.5, so to speak. And why I say 3.5 is because someone's going to have to constantly keep an eye on moving between the super minions that are going to push in mid and the 4-man, and that should be quite tough for them, especially since they've got only a Vladimir mid who's not traditionally known for like pushing waves super quick.
I'm not actually sure why the Kennen stayed in mid for so long to clear there. It meant that he had to go bot, and then like he's had to show on this wave, whereas he could have been there way before.
Yeah, I think it was possibly to shove out many super minions as possible, so that if a Baron was started by Afrika, the 4-man could move, and obviously Kennen's got TP, so he could TP after. But realistically, it's like for KT, they don't need to worry about the Baron so much. They can create pressure without Baron, whereas Afrika need to get Baron off the map. But if KT equally get Baron, then like I said, exactly Simba's first Baron, it's very, 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 very tough for Afrika to do anything if KT get Baron. But Afrika want this Baron off the map as soon as possible.
And so just a small detail in terms of posturing for Baron, what KT... Oh, I'll just pause it as I finish mine. What KT did there is they take any opportunity they can to just push in mid as much as possible to give themselves
so you've got as much time to be able to react to the Afrika if they start that Baron. Or if they posture to start that Baron, you've got like an extra couple of waves that you wouldn't otherwise get.
Yeah.
So that's something that you see quite a lot in lower level teams and like national teams and stuff. Is when you take the opportunity to clear Baron vision, but you don't take the opportunity to get the push if you can.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'll just play out this pick.
Oh, that's big. The Ashara going down. Afrika right now can very freely challenge for this mid wave.
Oh, the equalizer.
Ooh.
What a god.
Oh, that's rough.
That's game, right?
Should be.
Should well be,
Quite possibly.
Or at least like another inhib, because that top tower is so low. Ooh. Is that 3? No, just 2.
Again, it's just off a KT mistake. It's not off them playing their comp properly. Like, they don't need to go for picks there. That, like Furn said, they're weaker in a 5v5. They don't need to make a pick in the mid lane there. They have to just like seed the mid pressure and get Kennen like split pushing in a side lane, get pressure there.
I think you've got to give Afrika huge credit for this game, though. In as much as this game is one which you feel from minute 15 that you've got to make things happen, and they make it last. How long did the game go? 39 minutes. Without actually losing that window that they've got. They slowly but surely like extended the window longer and longer and longer, and never let Kennen have the side lane pressure that he needed. I don't think KT played particularly well around the Kennen. I don't think they used the Kennen to its utmost like pressure. But equally, Africa knew exactly what objectives they needed to get and when they could force the 5v5s. And knowing that the biggest thing about playing these type of comps, the 5-0 versus the 4-1, I think is knowing that Baron for the 5-0 comp has to be taken off the map so that you can move. And if that first Baron wasn't taken, even though they lost the fight afterwards, it meant very, very little on the grand scheme of things, because then they could move bot lane, then they could move into Kennen, and Kennen could never find points of pressure inside lanes. That was a huge kind of factor in Africa winning this game.
Yeah, definitely.
So what could KT have done better, again, in practice? So by play around the Kennen, what do you mean by that?
Well, they had to be more forceful with Kennen's moves. They had to allow Kennen to make moves before the 4-man makes moves. So Kennen needs to be pushed into the side lane very, very readily. I think realistically, having a Rengar with a Kennen isn't good enough when Lee Sin's present. Perhaps if this was... I see the value in the Rengar. It makes the 4-man very strong, and it makes it very potent with regards to the 4v4s. But it doesn't offer Kennen enough to ever get a lead in lane when it's up against something like a Lee Sin. Or if that was... perhaps even Elise or something along those lines. Not necessarily that would make the 4-man probably weaker, but the 4-man doesn't always have to be super strong if they're having to invest 2 people into Kennen, because you're only effectively fighting against a 3-man a lot of the time. So I think if you perhaps recognise that Kennen's Rumble's gonna push in this Kennen a lot of the laning phase, are going to be very high up. If you've got the stronger jungle matchup, it means you can punish the Rumble for aggressing and pushing out this Kennen in the early levels significantly harder than this Rengar ever could, and you get Kennen into the game earlier, meaning he can force earlier, he can play around Baron at 20 minutes, and he's as much as he's pushing bot lane very, very hard at that point already, because he has the upper hand on what happened in the laning phase over the Rumble. And then if Africa can't get Baron off the map, if they can't ever find a position where the split pressure of the other team doesn't have pressure so that they can force this Baron, and the Baron stays on the map for as long as possible, KT get a real lead because they can stick Kennen in the bot lane forever. And once that inhib goes down on bot lane, then the game is done too, because it's going to take Murrin and someone else clear the super minions, deal with Kennen while Kennen's just wallowing away at your base. And then equally, it gives huge amounts of Baron pressure for your own team. And if this team ever gets Baron, like I said, if the 4-1 ever gets Baron, no one ever stops Kennen taking all your towers.
Yeah, I think realistically, KT they lost this game through like a series of very small oversteps, which lost them a lot. Like Pawn getting caught out in the bottom lane when they didn't have enough pressure for the Kennen. Like Score getting caught out in the river when like they had just decided to sit in the river for no reason instead of just walking away. Like those 2 things lost them so much. Like had Pawn waited at that point for the Kennen to just like gather the minions and like grow in terms of the pressure he was putting out on the map, then they would have been in a really good position to actually start taking back the game from that point. But they just kept overstepping and losing their TP, and every time they lost their TP, that's another like 3 minutes for the Freaker Freaks to just like snowball the map.
Okay, cool. So that's going to be the end of game 1 then.